This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Let's talk about the rap that pay-per-view is getting within the company. There's been a lot of conversation and a lot written in this era about declining pay-per-view buy rates. It's important to recognize that the UFC is absolutely on fire here in 2010. And perhaps that's too much competition for WWE, because according to their own financials, 2010 was the worst year for pay-per-view since the Austin era in the late 90s. And one of the discussions is, hey, maybe we need more live pregame shows to push the late buys. But if you chart this thing, you can see it really falling, from 2000 on down. And by 2009 and then 2010, it's starting to feel like, hey, this is bottoming out. And we know a few years after this, we're going to just switch to the OTT platform and try the WWE network. Internally, were you guys hearing about declining buy rates, and is it a cause for concern, or is it business as usual as an agent at the time?
Well, I don't worry too much about that. Here would be my question, because I don't have, my facts and figures and bookings and stuff right in front of me. But how many pay-per-view, I got to, start being very clear and distinct about that. My wife chewed my ass out about it's not pay-per-view. How many were we doing a year in 2010? Do you recall off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, it's at least 10, but you got to think there are some brand splits. So yeah, there's more than that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I know it got as much as 22 at one point in a year. It's just ridiculous. I guess my question is to you would be, do you think when you do more and you're just looking at them on each individual buy versus having the big four, or even stretching it, out to 6 a year, you're going to have more buys on that pay-per-view, that thus, shoving that number up. When you got 10 and you're trying to build all your angles and get them hot and then blow them off to get them ready for the next, a big event. It just seems like to me, we were just too much,
13.
Spreading ourselves too thin.
13's the number. I just checked.
That's too many.
Yeah.
It's more than one a month.
2 in the month of October. That's the month that doubled up. You had 1 per month and then 2 in October. This one we're talking about, Hell in a Cell from Dallas, October 3rd. And then 3 weeks later, it would be Bragging Rights, which we're going to cover next, by the way. But that went down on the 24th. So yeah, we've got 13 pay-per-views, and I agree with you. And it's funny that we're talking about this now, because Bruce and I just recently discussed too. Did you prefer the old school once a quarter format? Did it lend itself to more effective storytelling? Did it make it feel more special? Whatever. I kind of tend to think you're probably going to agree with that, right? That once a quarter is more ideal.
Well, besides the fact that you can have 3 to 4 months to build all your angles, all your interests, have your new matchups, anybody new that you want to introduce. 3 months later, they're not new anymore. They mean something. And plus all of your normal television, you're not having to just devote to the upcoming pay-per-view and just push. You can take a breath. You can blow off all your angles at whatever event you're having. Now you got 3 to 4 months to reset. Okay, let's take a breath here. Let's maybe get some guys on the show that haven't been on the previous pay-per-view, and you get them some TV time, and you can kind of just reset your product and start building, but a slow build to your next big event. That would be my preference.
I think I agree. Let's talk about why we're really here. Hell in a Cell 2010. Can't believe this is nearly 10 years old now. It went down on October 3rd at American Airlines Arena in Dallas, Texas. This is the second Hell in a Cell themed pay-per-view, and it's following SummerSlam, of course, which we covered last month. The event draws 7,500 fans, which Meltzer would say is a terrible figure for the market. That does sound kind of low for a major pay-per-view in Dallas. Of course, at the actual show, there was no announcement made about crowd size, and that's usually a not so great sign. But there is some stiff competition in town. The Texas State Fair and the Texas Oklahoma game was that same weekend. I know that sometimes promoters, and me and Bruce have made fun of this for a long time, when something doesn't draw, there's always a silly excuse. And Bruce would joke, "Oh, well, that new gas station just opened up and it's 24/7 and they've got cold sandwiches in there. You can't compete with that." That's his silly illustration of all the silly excuses that a promoter could give. But I have to admit, scheduling a show sort of head to head with the Texas State Fair and their biggest in-state rivalry game, Texas and Oklahoma, that feels like a scheduling snafu from the office. What say you?
I would say if they wanted to see it, it wouldn't matter.
There you go.
Wrestling fans come to see wrestling matches. They don't come to see football games. You know, they can always go to the fair before or after the show, you know, the next day. It comes down to if you got what they want to see, they will come.
Well, they didn't exactly show up here. The pay-per-view though did draw 210,000 buys. Now here's the bad news about that. That's down 73,000 from the prior year when they did 283,000. And we're going to talk about that. Briefly, I do want to mention the commentary team for the night here is Michael Cole, Jerry the King Lawler, and Matt Stryker. What'd you think of that combination of announcers, Arn?
Well, I think Stryker did a better job than a lot of people gave him credit for.
Agree.
You know, he would lend a different, you know, tone to the broadcast, you know, a little bit goofy, but I think you want a little personality in your announcers too. And that, you know, he was being himself.
Yeah. I didn't hate him. And I do think I agree with you that he probably gets a bad rap. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at savewithconrad.com.